we should, do you have your notes? Or do you want me to start?
Go ahead. It's on the town clerk put it on, so I'll let it.
Well, one meeting that was discussed whether the agricultural animals, the special use permits were gonna be enforced or not. There was, one side of the table said yes, the other side of the table said no, we have not enforced, we've not sent out any renewal notices. There has been no renewals of anybody who's had previous animal use in the past, in the whole year. And these, they're not in the agricultural district. They're not in the ag district, so whether they are or they aren't,
They're not, if they're
we,
not,
we have no direction.
they're not in the agricultural district?
We have some that aren't and some that are, but there's still things that need to be inspected,
If
whether
it-
they are or aren't.
So my understanding is, and I'll listen to the board members, if they're in the ag district and the special use permit is related to their agricultural activity, there's no need for them to apply for a special use permit to the town.
So,
I
that's,
don't understand why not.
Because
Our
it's,
town laws still apply to everybody who's in an ag district. And if our town law is too restrictive, there is a process to go through for them to petition the state to tell them that our law is too restrictive and they get relief from ag and markets.
my understanding is that because it's no longer a special use, it's a use that's intrinsic with the land. So therefore, they don't have to apply.
I can answer Ray's question if you'd like an answer to his question.
Is that okay with Ray? Sir, go ahead.
Ray, I'd be happy to send you the link to a document on the New York State Department of Ag and Markets website. It's titled Guidelines for Review of Local Zoning and Planning Laws. But I'll just read one paragraph to you. New York State Town Law, Section 274-B, Subdivision 1 allows a town board to authorize a planning board or other designated administrative body to grant special use permits as set forth in a zoning ordinance or local law. Special use permit is defined as an authorization of a particular land use which is permitted in a zoning ordinance or land local law to assure that the proposed use is in harmony with such zoning ordinance or local law and will not adversely affect the neighborhood if such requirements are met. Agricultural uses in an agricultural district are not, however, special uses. They are constitutionally recognized land uses which are protected by Agricultural and Markets Law, Section 305-A, Subdivision 1. Further, agricultural districts are created and reviewed locally through a process which includes a public notice and hearing, much like zoning laws are adopted and amended. Therefore, absent any showing of an overriding local concern, generally, an exemption from special use permit requirements should be provided to farm operations located within an agricultural district. So in short, if you are in an ag district, it is not a special use to be doing agricultural things.
So does that mean that you don't need to have
And you do not need
animal feces and stuff 100 feet from a house?
That has nothing to do with it. If they're not engaging in a sound agricultural practice, which is not what you're referring to right now, you're talking about a permitting process.
Right.
You just identified something entirely different. It's not germane to what we're talking about right now. So as permitting goes, no, if you're in an ag district, it is unlawful. It's an unreasonable restriction in violation of Ag and Markets 305A to require a special use permit. Can I jump in, back in?
Mhm.
That's my legal understanding. And I think, it seems like Mr. Trippy agrees. I was consulting with him before the meeting about something else not related to this. But it seems that's the case. That once you're in the agricultural district, if it's related to that core activity, for example, if I wanted to put up a radio tower, they would need a special use permit because it's not related to the agricultural activity, or it's not reasonably related to the agricultural activity. But if it's something that's related to the agricultural activity, they don't need a special use permit anymore. So they don't have to come to us for it.
So I'm just asking this question. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, asking the question hypothetically. I have a residential piece of property that has been put into an ag district, and my piece of property is half an acre.
Yes, sir.
And according to our town law, in order for me to have horses on that, I have to go through a special use permit process in order to do that. And I'm allowed a certain number or none, depending on how much acreage I have. So in this particular case, if nobody needs a special use asking the question.
No, let me try to answer. So what I would say is there's two-step analysis. The first step would be, I get it, and I appreciate you trying to answer the question, and I'm trying to answer it. The first step would be, is that type of activity, agricultural activity, reasonable for the property? If it's not, we can jump in and try to stop it. If it is reasonable for the property, there's no use to do an additional analysis to see whether they can get a special use permit. So if someone was putting horses on a half an acre, forget the special use permit, that doesn't apply, we could go after them and say, wait a second, this is not a reasonable activity for this type of property. This is too small a property to support
Okay, so,
8 horses.
so we have to react to something happening out there and see it, get complaints, whatever the case may be, and then proceed with some kind of code enforcement on that.
I think there
Go ahead.
should be, I think our weakness is we don't have guidelines clear guidelines.
Right.
For 1 horse per X acres, 2 cows per X acres, X chickens per.
Yes.
In the absence of that, I think we're weak.
Once again, many months ago, on a couple of occasions, I gave town board members a copy of guidance from
From
New York,
Cornell.
from Cornell.
Right.
Basically, long story short, 1,000 pounds per acre, 1,000 pounds per acre. So when I hear 10 horses on half an acre, it's like, did you guys not get the sheet I passed out to
I got the
everybody?
sheet.
And this is why I wanted to have that adopted as part of a local law, just to
That
make
would
it
be-
really clear.
That's where our
That's,
goal
that
is.
is the guideline that the
For
state
gas.
is currently using, so you don't actually really need to adopt a local law, that is what the state is following.
So I'm gonna make 2 comments on this whole subject.
That might be the
So,
answer.
so the first, well, we're getting there, we're getting closer to that, and I wanna make sure we do a comprehensive review that's proper, so we don't have to rethink this a year from now. I want, haste makes waste, and I wanna make sure we do it the right way, and we're getting closer to that. The second thing is, however, okay, so you know I've been supportive of the agricultural stuff all along, but I think I made this, at the public hearing, I made this comment, I'm gonna make this comment again. We have had an avalanche of applications for ag districts, an absolute avalanche compared to other communities. It's not even close. So that says 2 things. Number one, there's a super high demand for agriculture. People are interested in agriculture on Grand Island. That's number one. Number 2, it says, well, we need to be careful with this, because what you can do is have a backlash if there's mistakes made. So far, it seems like the ag community is doing a really good job of policing themselves. Believe it or not, I haven't received any complaints. There's 1 complaint, and the farmers market, which I was hoping to help get started, doesn't need me. It's flourishing on its own. So things are going well, but I do think we have to be careful of watching this going forward, because I don't know. There was an application the other day. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. If that went in, I think it could cause a lot of angry citizens if we're not careful. So I think, Ray, your concern is justified, but I think for the special use permits, I think they don't need them.
Well, then, maybe to
Then
be
the
corrected that anybody who's in an ag district doesn't need to do their special use permit. The people who are not have to continue.
That's correct. I think that's correct.
Doug, you need to chime in.
That's what we agreed to the other day.
That's,
Yeah,
that's what
if
we
they're
want.
outside, it's regulated as the
So
zoning
we just want a
code.
resolution from the board then to close the files, right? So that.
I don't need
that's-
that, you wanted that.
Right, because we send you the permit, and
Yep.
you didn't go and inspect it because we were waiting to hear if these were gonna be enforced or not.
Yep.
So, we want the board's direction then to close these files, so that if I open up this file and the person says, why aren't I doing the special use anymore? The board has directed us not to, but the file's closed.
For ag districts.
If you're in an ag district, well, there's, a list of people that's not pertaining to people with special uses,
Oh, I would
or
have it-
cell towers apparently. I mean, I don't know if the riding stables, there's 2 riding stables, I'm not sure if they're in, it. Sparks isn't, yes.
Doug, would you be able to do like we just heard, if there's New York regs in place for how many animals per acre, or how many pounds of animal per acre, or whatever, we could just enforce it based on that, based on the New York reg, as opposed to needing to create a unique town reg or code?
Well, here's the problem, you need to adopt something. I can't enforce their
So
regulations.
then we would need to
I
adopt
am not
that.
empowered to do that.
You're talking about
That
the,
sounds like the action we need to do then.
You're
Well,
talking about
we
the
need to look at
specifics of that?
Because I look
Coop
at that,
and all
and
that?
there's,
haven't
to me.
where the barn and the housing structure and all that is?
That's adopted. The part, the 1,000 pounds per acre isn't our code, it's New York State code.
For right now, I would, I don't know about closing the file. I mean,
We have
I would just
people-
say that the people in the ag districts don't have to renew their special permit, nor if they're brand new, they don't have to come in for a special.
If the permit is related to the agricultural activity.
But those files are open, we have a database that kicks every month and says you need to contact them, and then there's other people with other types
Okay,
of
so if
special
you're,
use permits.
if you're talking about closing the file so that there's no more notification and
Right,
action,
right.
but the file still exists, because if we find out that there's something else is going on, or whatever the case may be, we wanna have that file there.
Right, I want something that says that the board is, that their renewal is not gonna go out anymore, they don't have to pay their $20, there's not gonna be an inspection, and that the board is directing us not to do that, and then ultimately, we don't give that paperwork to code enforcement to come back and renew the special use on the agenda,
Maybe the town attorney could draft something based on the
based on the
state
list.
laws that,
That's what it sounds like we need to
Okay,
do.
so.
that would be a directive that we could
Why
follow.
don't we ask Peter to write up some kind of a resolution?
I think
That's what we're
at
looking
least,
for.
maybe we wanna polish that a little bit, but for now, I think we should at least adopt that we're gonna, hold to that as a standard, the New York State standards.
Well, here's the problem, we're not empowered to do that. So if it's not in an ag district, we're gonna follow our rules.
That's right.
If it is, we have nothing. It's, go
Also,
do your ag stuff.
You wouldn't be able to enforce that if we do a resolution
based
saying we're
on
gonna
what?
comply with that?
The town board needs to, if they want to embrace this agricultural district thing, you need to get on board with it, you need to empower us to do it. And adopt whatever laws you feel appropriate,
So
whether
this
it's state guidelines or whatever, to give us, to empower us to do it. Right now, we're in a gray area.
So this is how I think we'll get out of that gray area. And by the way, it seems like there's a level of urgency. There really isn't a level of urgency. It's only, there's not that many, there's no complaints. There's not one complaint. This is what we need to do. So in January, we put it, I haven't heard it before.
There's at least one. You've met the people.
Oh, there's,
over on
there,
staff.
sorry, he's right. There's one complaint. Exactly. There's one complaint that had
Pretty
pre-existed before the ag district.
Yeah.
It's existed for years. So, here's the thing. In January or February, we're gonna find out about the grant money we asked for. So that will be, so like, why do we need grant money to write our own law? Because obviously, we're not experts in this area, so we can hire an expert. You're like, well, that's a waste. No, well, it's not a waste. Then we can know we've done it right, and we can say, this guy's an objective expert recognized in the field that can help us write the law, that can be a comprehensive law. So that he can benchmark other similar communities with similar laws, they can speak fluently about this and put it into our law in a way that we can be proud of. So January, February, we should know about that, and then we can have it enacted, hopefully by mid-year.
So for right now, you need a motion?
Yeah.
Patty, you would like a motion?
Well, or if it's gonna be drawn up by the attorney, we can maybe do it for Monday's meeting.
Okay, we'll wait
That's
for
fine.
that.
Because, but those were the questions that Doug had, that's why I'd asked if you wanted to chime in on all, that's talking about the limits on the number of animals and the agricultural buildings and that kind of.
At
code
this point in
enforcement.
time, the state law supersedes ours, so if they're in an ag district, that doesn't apply. Based on what Peter Godfrey said the other night, if they're not in an ag district, we're gonna apply those rules and move forward.
And if they're in,
Now, the gray area is still trying to enforce the things like, how close can a horse be to your neighbor? Right up to their property line? 10 feet from the house? 20 feet? Those are the questions that I would like the town board to address and give us guidance, because those are the gray areas we're talking about and that we've been talking about and that are already out there, right up to the slaughterhouse, processing plant, whatever you want to call it, for animals. Chuck
That's-
Malcolm agreed that that is an M1 operation, and that's where that goes.
That's a very different issue. He's bringing in outside meat to process it, and I think that's what I was referring to earlier. That kind of activity can put the whole thing in jeopardy. So I think we're in agreement on that we can take action against that one. But I mean, this is going to take judgment. I mean, we're looking for black and white rules. Right now, it's hard. We'll get regulations in place next year, but I think we just we have to move forward in this gray area until this is a whole new thing. So we'll just have to take it step by step.
so we can maybe talk to the attorney tomorrow.
So
So who's talking to the attorney?
I can ask, I can give them the properties that, we have the I was just trying to cross-reference the list a couple of times. Based on this list to the one that was sent to us by the legislature, who's in the ag district, and then who we have special use permits on, because they're not all
Is that
agricultural.
the current list that was approved, or there's still some out there that?
There's still some out there, but like, one is a cell tower, so that's not applicable to what I'm, talking about. They would still have a special use. So there's 4 or 5 or 6 of those, and then there's bed and breakfast special use permits, and things like that that are applicable.
Right.
And home occupations,
Right.
So there's still special uses for other things, but it had to do with, all these are sitting on hold. There were, I think, 1 or 2 people that may have even renewed it at the beginning of the year,
Well, then
and
let's
that didn't even follow through, that, paid the $20.
Let's
And now
either
we're-
write a simple resolution to get them out.
Okay,
or
so we
not.
can, like, effectively close them, but yet meaning they're just not gonna be.
Not active.
Not active, right, okay? Are you guys,
That sounds good.
and I think Doug had maybe 1 or 2 other items regarding that same.
Well, there's other things that are still out there. There's a seasonal market thing, the guidelines that Mr. Trippy referred to for eggs and markets talks about that. And what it comes down to is if the public is entering a building for whatever, purchasing something, it's under different guidelines, and it's not agricultural anymore. So it loses its exemption. And those are the things that are out there. Apparently, there's still misconceptions based on what I've read in the newspapers, because we haven't had direct conversations with some of the people doing some of these things. That needs to be clarified also, and if the town wants to allow flexibility, that's their opportunity to do it with this, revised agricultural code section.
Well, the current market doesn't have any real buildings involved though, or are you more talking generically?
I'll throw that question, is the town okay with that occurring on land? I know there were some parking issues that were corrected, they talk in the same ag and markets guidelines for zoning, they talk about site plans, they talk about different types of site plan criteria for ag uses that are simplified, they're not as detailed, they're less costly to do, but they still allow the municipality to look at things like parking and other things that affect and occur at these places.
So,
I haven't heard any complaints there, so I don't know that there's a problem there.
I think,
Well,
what Doug is
If you
bringing
wait
up
till
is-
there's a problem, we didn't
Right.
do our job, I guess,
So-
because
Right.
they
So-
should be
So
regulated.
Doug has some things there that are in gray areas, and if we can get this going at the beginning of the year and get it done before the good weather comes back, maybe we'll be in good shape. And we can decide what kind of regulations we, town, are interested in adopting and what kind we aren't gonna adopt, and just
So,
go from
yeah,
there with
so-
somebody who knows more about this subject, because the stuff I read
Yeah.
is, I read it a different way. I don't know why, maybe my mind is backwards, but sometimes I read this stuff and I go, no, that's red, and the other person says it's blue, and I don't think so.
right.
If we get somebody who's done this a few times at least, and knows kind of what they're talking about, what they're doing,
And that's their specialty.
expertise, like you said,
Yeah.
would really help.
I think that's right. I think on this market though, the market is it's closed for the season right now. This is
Just for special events,
they're gonna have special events here or there. I do think it's in the interest of the market's growth too, to have it planned out, so there's not some unintentional injury or problem over there that we haven't foreseen. So we do have to get on top of that, because, I'm sorry, it is growing, it's growing fast, every time it gets bigger. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So it's getting bigger and bigger, it draws more and more, so you have to have a plan, or else it's gonna be problems, I agree with that. So I'm not sure if they're gonna have more activities, I'm not even sure we can wait on that, to be honest with you. It's something we should talk offline about.
Well, I guess that more activity isn't gonna really start, except with some special events
Yeah,
here,
you're right.
until the weather breaks.
Right.
Okay, so I guess
So
the
we
goal
should
is to hurry up and get this done as soon as possible, so we have some clear
Who-
guidelines.
Where's the grant coming from?
It's coming from,
Ag and Market.
yeah, ag and
It's
markets.
coming from
And
Ag
someone's
Market.
actively
And we
working
won't
on
know until January, February?
That's when we apply for the grant.
You
That's when
can't,
we apply for the grant.
you
Yes,
can't put,
yes.
yes,
Oh.
but it should,
we've
it's
been told
decided
we pretty
quickly.
much are gonna have it. The
Yeah.
issue is getting the conference place in motion,
Yeah.
and then that later comes on top of it.
So,
Okay.
do we know where to go? I'm sorry, go ahead, Pat.
I'm talking slow today.
Go ahead.
I think at this point, what we as board need to do is start accruing that list of things that we need for them to be addressing, and this is certainly one of them. You know, along with the other things that we're concerned with.
So I think what we need to do with this too is work with this ag community to make sure that we do this in a way that their input is taken. I mean, I think Doug is working with them. Seems like Doug is talking to these gentlemen. Seems like that way, right? You guys are getting along well and you're talking things out, working it out. So I think we just continue to do that until next year. And then as we draft the law, we'll get input from the community about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and we'll get input from the experts, and we'll aim for, I would say we aim for April or May next year to try to get it done.
Where did we go for help on this? State ag and
There's a
market
lady,
people?
there's a lady at Cornell who came and visited. I called her and she came visit me like 2 months ago. And I asked her that same question. And she gave me a list of people, including herself, that does this for communities.
Okay, so can we put an RFP out?
Yes.
Can we find, before we get the grant, can we find out how much somebody's gonna charge us to do this? And I'm throwing this out there. So somebody says they'll come in and work with us and they'll draft this all up and we'll have it all squared away. It's $5,000.
Yep.
Do we have to wait?
No, but but the thing is, we spend the money before we get the grant.
No, we don't get the grant.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the issue. But we can do it right away. You're right.
If we're not gonna apply for the grant until February, we're not gonna get the grant
Well,
until
no, we're gonna apply in January, right after we do
January.
this piece, we're doing that piece right away.
Did they tell you how long it is until they grant the grant?
They said it's quick turnaround, but who knows? You're right.
Quick turnaround.
Yeah, right. You're right. Yeah, you're right.
I'd say give it a chance though, cause I mean, how long is this really gonna take to do from beginning to end?
Not much.
Oh, yeah.
You know? You're right. You're right. Okay, let me think about writing an RFP for it, so at least we can get some people in here early, so we know what we're gonna pick.
Good idea.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good idea.
We have a sample already.
You do? Okay.
So let's put an RFP together. We'll say
They won't,
that's okay.
deter us from getting the grant, just finding out what it's gonna cost
No.
anyway.
No,
Right.
Yeah.
no, and it will also get us some more intel about some of these issues.
Mhm.
So let's do that. Good idea.
Did you need a motion?
No,
Did you
well,
have any
we need, no, I mean, I'm just gonna do it unless the power board, okay. All right, I'll prepare it and I'll circulate it to the team here.
Okay.
Sidewalks, Mr. Witterman, you have some comments about these 4 locations?
Two.
Two locations, I'm sorry.
I'm assuming the town board wanted an update on some of these?
The first two, aren't those the ones that were on the board agenda the other night?
Yes.
Good night.
So those are the ones that, a long time ago,
That's
Right.
Marjorie and 905
it's a
Basin.
while ago.
905 baseline and 1993 were part of 6 lots that were between Marjorie and Fix Road on Baseline, on the east side of Baseline. Older subdivisions had pushed in and sidewalks were missing in that section. After several meetings with the town board, a strategy was developed and letters were sent out. So it was basically that the town would put in sidewalks if people refused to put them in these missing sections. And it was to facilitate the movement of pedestrians in those. The first letter went out as a group. The 2 of the parcels were short extensions of existing sidewalks. Those property owners took care of their situations. 2 other ones were already added to the tax rolls in 2015. They were 891 Baseline and 1986 Marjorie, which were ones adjacent to and ones across on Marjorie from the other one here. So we followed through, we wrote letters, we talked to the people. They basically told us to have the town install the sidewalks, and in the letter we sent to them in 2013 of October, they were advised that, be advised any sidewalks not installed by the above date will be scheduled for installation by a contractor working on the town's behalf, with all associated costs, including interest, being assessed back to the property over a period of 5 years. We gave some costs that were existing at the time for the 4-foot sidewalk so they could figure out how much that would be. And then we continue to move forward. In 2015, the one we did, and the other one we did also. One with their blessing, and one he still didn't really want it done. But we finally got the green light, and we coordinated the information that was in your packets, was the bills that were incurred by the town, and that's where that whole section is, so.
those two were, I mean, you talk to the community and get them to do their sidewalks if they can, and if they can't or something, they get a hold of code enforcement, they come back and go, well, geez, you know, I got a problem here with paying this, well, here, we can do it, the town can do it, but it actually cost you more, because we have to pay prevailing wage, but we can do it, and then we can put it on your taxes over a 5-year period, and some people go to that, well, okay, I'm gonna be able to handle that then, okay, go to it and do it that then. So I think that's where the first two were done, starting in 2013, right?
Yes,
So
and they all had the initial letter in December of 2012.
my guess is that needs to be done, the amount of money spent needs to be pushed.
That was the alternative, like I said, it was discussed at the time, and it took several town board meetings to develop the strategy, and, as opposed to just taking them to court and seeking fines, which didn't get the sidewalk installed, and didn't deal with the problem of somebody having the expense of doing it. So this solved both problems and, spread it out, and,
So the
other
court-
situations are on hold too.
The court has said this is okay, go ahead, spread out the costs.
But I don't think,
This was allowed by town law. Dan
By town
Spitzer
law.
came up and
So-
developed the strategy.
Did
and-
we originally, so how, why were these two locations chosen? I mean, I wasn't here in 2013.
There was a whole section, like I said, there were 6 lots in that area that were missing sidewalks.
Right.
So
So guys,
these were
can I take
carried
a
over.
step back for a second and talk about sidewalks more broadly? I have a couple ideas I wanna run by the board. So we're working on the center sidewalk plan, it's a 4-part plan. I worked out with John Whitney. We all agreed to apply for the TAP grant for the first part of that plan, which will be good because we'll be able to not have a guilty conscience because we'll have a sidewalk up in front of the town hall if it goes through. I mean, I don't know, like, I have a lot of different thoughts about this. So under the town law right now, if you're building a subdivision, you have to put a sidewalk in, correct? You have to do that, right?
It's been on the books for a very long
doesn't have
time.
to be a subdivision.
Or a new house, a
You're-
new building.
You're in a sewer district.
Right. Sewer
I think.
district,
Pursuant to 325-5A of the town code, formerly 32-2A, sidewalks will be required along the entire frontage of all major subdivision lots or parcels located in a sanitary sewer district. That was in the 2012 letter, so that went out.
So it is major subdivisions.
so major subdivision in a sewer district, you need a sidewalk when you build a new building. So
Correct.
right now we have a situation where we have like a patchwork of sidewalks that exist and do not exist throughout the town. Someplace there is a sidewalk, someplace there is no sidewalk. I think ideally we wanna have sidewalks in most places. Some places doesn't make sense, right? Some places like, why would we wanna have a sidewalk there? It doesn't work. It's so weird to have a sidewalk there. I guess what I'm asking is, could we, I'm trying to think of a good way to do this without doing one-offs on people. And we've talked about it before, we never really got a good solution, so maybe there isn't a good solution. What if we did it like special lighting districts? Like, you know, special lighting districts, let's say you want lights. Everyone has to say, a certain amount of people have to sign a petition to say we want lights, and they all agree to take the hit. So could we just divide the island up into special lighting districts, and then say, hey, if your community, if your special sidewalk district wants it, you guys all go to, get a petition, and all sign it. If 70% of you say we want it, or whatever the requirement of the law for lighting districts is, we'll give it to you, but you pay for it, just like we do for a special lighting district. Is that a workable solution? Am I missing something with that?
I mean, places where sidewalks don't exist right now.
Or where there's patch sidewalks. If the community says, hey, just like for a lighting district, right? But we have these areas now where they don't have lights, and the community says we want lights, pay for them. We're like, well, we're not going to pay for them. You guys can sign off as a petition, and we'll help you get them, but you have to pay for them. Why can't we just do that with sidewalks? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure how it works. Lighting is, like, there's a light here, and then down there's another light. So there's not one on my property, there's not one on your property, there's not one on his property, so on and so on. There's a sidewalk on everybody's property, until you get to a property where there isn't a sidewalk or it's in disrepair. And the question would be, well, the sidewalk in front of my house is fine, so why do I wanna sign a petition to do this? I mean,
I think that works when you have a neighborhood has no sidewalks.
yes.
But when you have a neighborhood that 90% of the people have sidewalks.
I
I guess I don't, you know what I don't understand is, it says that major subdivisions have to have sidewalks in the frontage, right? I don't understand why the developer isn't putting those sidewalks in. Why is it left until,
Because the installation of the utilities would destroy them.
okay, so the
They
utilities
go in when the
are-
house goes in,
Okay,
yeah, that's why.
So if the lot isn't built on yet,
Vacant lot, yeah.
it does not have the infrastructure in it.
Correct.
So they put the
The
sidewalk.
sewer and water utilities on a new house.
Is
end up
there-
Tearing up the.
For the contractor, is there no, so the contractor doesn't come in at a later date and put that sidewalk in?
When the permit's issued for the house, one of the things on the permit is if it needs a sidewalk that's shown on the permit.
So if you're building a house, the contractor has to put the sidewalks in.
Somebody has to put it in, I don't wanna say necessarily, sometimes, like Ryan Home isn't big on some things, a homeowner can have to do it themselves to save money, they can do their own landscaping, and we don't care, it's just part of the permit. And before you get a certificate, a final certificate of occupancy, you have to have all the things done that you need to have done, and in a sewer district, it's install a sidewalk, is one
So
of the
these
things.
particular lots, so let's just go back to these particular lots. So the contractor didn't put the sidewalks in, because they weren't built on right away.
tax map that shows it pretty easy.
These have not been installed yet, right?
These are all in, no, these are in.
Okay.
These were the 6 sections that were missing when we started it back in 2012. Marjorie, there was 2 corner lots that were still vacant. They're owned, they're too small to put a house on successfully with the required setbacks. They were left unattached. This had a small piece missing because this was a newer house. This was a newer subdivision that went in the late 80s. This was from the 40s. Existing houses along here just got hodgepodged and left up. This was from here down, it was all done at one time, they were all in. These pieces were always just missing. The one down here was because the house was one of the original houses from, who knows, the 30s
So
or 40s. So
I have a question, how, like, one of the things I'm concerned about more than anything else is not doing this, but doing this randomly. How are these locations, I mean, it seems like we're so far along in the process here that we can't go back. But how are these locations originally chosen?
to be done,
Yeah,
we
To be
kind of went
connected.
around, there were several, these aren't the first or only ones, these are the ones that are currently in process. Most of the other people have actually put them in, we've had them scattered throughout the island, we've had requests that have gone through and been processed, these are people that chose not to put them in.
I think, so what I would like to do is, I think we should do a moratorium, this is old business, right? Existing business. I like,
And it has to go.
I don't wanna keep doing this until we have a better way of doing it, and I don't think we're
This
there
was
yet.
already out
Which we already
from
said that.
2015.
We already did that.
This
Yeah.
is
The
existing.
directive was already issued, no more new missing sidewalk.
And this one was installed, now it's just a matter of billing them,
This
right?
was the, putting it on the tax rolls, they've already, the bills, again, in the package that was passed out to you for the town board workshop was, I think, all 2015.
So the sidewalks are in, they just
Sidewalks
need to
are
be paid for now, so it's gotta go on the tax rolls,
To get our money
because they
back.
haven't paid for
And
it.
do we have to
That's right.
pass something to say that?
Yeah,
That's
that's
what you guys
tabled.
That's what we tabled, referred to ourselves.
Right, got it.
But I'm not familiar with the other two, there weren't any resolutions.
2 were done last year, 2 were done in 2015.
Oh, 55 Park Place and 480.
Oh,
I
those,
only
And the
have
Park
these two.
Place ones I
I'm
put
not
on
sure what's
because
going on there.
there've been several complaints from neighbors
Yes.
in Park
Thank
Place.
you.
Oh, they're.
And that's part of the missing sidewalk thing, that's the big piece is, you know, in denser areas when they're developed, people wanna be able to walk, they don't wanna have to walk back out into the road to keep walking.
I understand that, if there's,
Okay.
if there's outcry from the community, that's why I was getting into the special lighting district, saying we need to have sidewalks here, and it makes sense. So listen,
If it was a green field,
But-
that would
but-
be good.
Yes.
Here's an example, let's use Park Place as an example. So I built in Park Place, and I pay to have a sidewalk in front of my house. And the next person moves 3 doors down, and they get their house, and they pay to have a sidewalk put in front of their house. Now, whatever missing sidewalks there are after the subdivision is just about done, and there's a section here and a section there, maybe I bought a double lot, I'm not putting a house on it, and there's no sidewalk there, and down there, there's a little section that maybe hasn't been done, and the developer's the only one that's owning that lot and it's not being sold. I think in those instances, we should ask for those to be completed, so those subdivisions can be a
He understands
walkable, strollable, bike ride, whatever community,
I agree.
where this other one, like for instance, we'll take this as an example from, Love, did you go from Love or Broadway or Marjorie?
This was Marjorie down south
Marjorie.
towards Fix.
Marjorie to Fix. There's some newer houses in there, there's some older houses in there, and there's some old houses in there that never thought about putting a sidewalk in. So you walk up to the front door and say, you don't gotta put a sidewalk in. Really?
Yeah, right.
So maybe that's a different kind of a situation than our subdivisions are.
Yeah.
And we oughta.
Well, the
look at
lots we
those.
cited were in the subdivision, they're tied into sewers, I mean, they were actually there before the sewer.
Right.
The one based on that log cabin was there before the sewer was there,
So
but.
since the moratorium still exists, can we talk, this gentleman, first of all, this gentleman wants to say something, does the board, is it okay if he says something, he keeps raising his hand?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So I'm the homeowner of 1993 Marjorie, and I've been pushing back on this for quite a while. And first I want to thank the board, the members that I met with about a year and a half ago, because I raised some issues that I don't think were thought of. And number one was, the impact to somebody's ability to refinance their home or sell their home if there was a tax lien, based off of unpaid taxes. Folks like myself who have kids going to college, how can we afford this kind of stuff, right? So the town was very gracious in providing this option for repayment. I was on board with that because, to be honest with you, looking at the cost of my property, I knew privately it was in excess of $7,000, which was quite a chunk of money. And having a 5-year repayment would have been much more palatable, right? So in conversation with the former supervisor, I'd asked for some things prior to agreeing to have the town do this on my behalf. And they were simple things. Number one was I wanted some sort of documentation stating what the repayment terms were. A simple letter stating that it was 5 years in one of Mr. Lehrman's letters was not acceptable. What happens if a new leadership comes in and things change? If there isn't anything documented, I was very concerned. Never received that, by the way. I was told that there was an administrative fee, which I did see in a resolution that was, I won't say it was poorly drafted, but that looked pretty sloppy, to be honest with you, from a board meeting in 2014, where there was an administrative fee. I think it was either $200 and $250, which I was explained was for that legal piece for me and amongst others, to get whatever documentation we wanted. Nothing ever came as a result of that. The challenge I have now is a few things. Number one is the sidewalks are done, as Mr. Lehrman mentioned, as folks mentioned, right? It was done without my expressed authorization. However, what could I do? I couldn't push back anymore. There was nothing I could do. Looking into a legal assistance with this, doing the math, it didn't make any sense. If it's 7 here, 5 here, it's all going to balance out whether I choose to push back or not. My one big concern was, and this kind of goes to a comment that Mr. Lehrman said about if we don't do our jobs, then this happens. Well, this is where I'm kind of feeling now that I've lived in that house for 18 years. The house was built in 1970. The code was changed in 1999, prior to or after I had moved in. So if the code changed after a resident moved in, why am I expected to pay for the sidewalk or install the sidewalk that should have been installed prior to me ever occupying the home, if that was the previous code? So I think we have an issue that there were several homeowners prior to me owning my home. Now, quite frankly, my wife's family's been very long time residents of Grand Island. I've been here 18 years, never had a problem, never had an issue. I love Grand Island. If I knew a sidewalk had to be put in on my property when I bought it, would that have changed my mind? Probably not. But 18 years later, to be told that there are complaints that are being filed against the property, but yet there is no log of complaints and there is no evidence to show what those complaints are, was really bitter, very bitter to me. And as I sit here now, it's even more bitter because I understand the role that Mr. Lehrman has to play, and I'm going to put my foot in my mouth here and say that I like having the sidewalk because I've noticed that I'm on a corner and folks who walk their dogs or walk their kids, they have a nice sidewalk to walk as opposed to having to potentially go onto baseline. So I like that. However, the way in which it was installed, and not even the way in which it was installed, the process by which was followed, I think was unfair. The documentation that was promised, and it was not from Mr. Lehrman, it was from the former supervisor, was never given. I had asked for a plan similar to what, and I thank you in advance, what's the plan for the entire island? Because if I drive around, number one, I can point out several homes that do not have sidewalks or missing sidewalks. The answer that I was given was there is no plan, and when we're out and about, and I am paraphrasing to some degree, when we're out and about, that's when we see them. That doesn't seem really fair to me, and to target 6 people at a time seems a little bit and again, don't get me wrong, seemed a little bit bittersweet as well. But my big concern again is there's a long history behind this. I've got like 3 pages of notes that I won't bore anybody here with. A special meeting or subsequent meeting, I have no problem going through the specific detail. But my big thing was, where's the documentation that protects me as a homeowner? So that if someone doesn't come in one day and say, hey, Heath Frisch, guess what? You owe us $6,543, whatever that dollar amount might be.
Well, we need to get that to you.
Yes.
I have been expecting that for over.
So
No
why
ifs,
don't
ands, or buts.
So I'll get you the documentation you require. So I think you deserve that. I think what we should do as a board, and well spoken by the way, thank you. I think what we should do as the board is we should all brainstorm about where we go going forward. I've created I didn't create it, the engineering department created by my request, a map of all of the missing sidewalks that need to be replaced under the law. I'll send that to you guys. Let's brainstorm some ideas
But,
about
you know, I totally agree with what he said. I was against the moratorium on this because he's absolutely 100% right. He had to put it in, what's the plan for the rest of us? So now you're gonna say, this guy doesn't need it, that guy doesn't
I'm
need
not
it?
convinced
No,
it's gonna
that's not
change.
what we're gonna say.
No, we're gonna, I'm asking right now, that's
So we'll have a
Go
plan,
ahead.
and this is also.
Actually, with Tom, so they need to approve it before
What
I
aren't
can send
put in
it.
right now.
I can't send it
This
till they
has been
approve
going
it, but you
on
get a
since
breakdown of everything.
No,
over
no, well,
years.
there's two more that popped up. What do you, how are you gonna pick those two?
Well, I think
Right
we should,
here.
I think we should have a plan before we continue going after people. So people can say, well, why did you pick me? We can say, we picked you because of justification X, Y, and Z. So people understand.
So can we get that
Can I clarify two things, Mr. Supervisor?
from,
No, we'll give you in a second. What were you saying, Ray?
so we can get that documentation from, the engineering department?
Yeah, I'll circulate it tomorrow.
And we have a sidewalk committee, right?
Yes.
Not active though, right?
Oh, we have a
No,
sidewalk.
we met once.
We should have.
And they had the same mixed feelings we did. Why don't we
Well,
give, that's a good
We
idea.
need to sit down and discuss it and figure it out, come up with a resolution, we're gonna do nothing, we're gonna do something, we're gonna do halfway, whatever, I don't know what we're gonna do, but we need to make a decision.
So
We're
by
not just having it hang out there.
January, I'll have a recommendation to the sidewalk committee. How about that?
Can we just meet with the sidewalk committee?
Yeah, we'll set up an appointment to meet with them. In the meantime, I'll send them the map of all the missing sidewalks.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If there's a revisitation of this, I'd like to then hold off on the tax being rolled, then the dollar amount being rolled into my taxes this coming year, if that's the plan.
It won't be
Why?
till 2018 at this point.
Very good.
We're
That'll
past the
work.
deadline.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. President.
That's resolved. Doug, what do you want to say?
Just to clarify, we have a breakdown, again, the information we send you is what goes to the homeowner after the town board approves it. We don't send it before it's approved, so he's got the breakdown that will come to him. The second thing is he mentioned not having them installed. Well, they are adjacent lots, the two vacant lots that I showed you on the corner of Marjorie and Baseline. Both those were vacant lots. A permit was never issued for the development of those lots. Under adjacent ownership, they've been common ownership with the person owning the house since they were built. So it keeps carrying over, it's just a vacant lot, similar to Park Place. It's a vacant lot. And if they're gonna own it next to them and there's no intention of building, with the sidewalk in, because it's just a missing link, that could sit there literally for 50 years, 100 years. And these 6 lots came to light because there was people that didn't want to put it in themselves, I guess for lack of a better term. They chose to, after drawing out the process for literally 4 years, it was 2012, again, when this was all started. This didn't happen fast. There's nothing fast about this process.
When did the sidewalks go in?
2015, I think everything went in 15. Why we waited on these last two, and it carried over, was to see how the grading was gonna work out. If we had to go in and do any grading, that would've been a carryover, and that's why we waited through this year, and that's why those two carried over. The other ones, they either did it themselves, or we did it right then. These went in at a later section based on the contractor's time period that was doing, and the unit price contract is who we have to deal with for the installation. So that's it. So the numbers are already here, they're already crunched, you guys already have them.
Cindy, do me a favor.
That
Will
goes
you
to-
set up a special workshop as soon as possible with the sidewalk committee and provide them the stuff we've already worked on, including the stuff for the center of the town? Okay, thank you.
So 2 actions there, that and then getting the documentation.
Yes, I will work with the documentation.
Well, what we have is probably good enough, unless it needs to be in more legal terms.
What I'll do is I'll put together a one-page legal document and I'll do it so you feel like future boards will also comply with this.
Yeah, and again, my concern is really for myself, of course, but, neighbors and folks around the island, I don't think that going into something like that without something substantive is really an appropriate action.
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, trapping permit? Can we move, I'm sorry, anyone else have any comments on this? Trapping permit?
So,
It's
it's still on the
We
table.
haven't done anything.
Oh, so let,
So we do it here, or
You do it right now?
let's do it right now.
so we have to make a motion to approve the, consequently, planning.
The town was collecting sidewalks at 905 baseline and 1993.
So-
It was made.
And then, no, you tabled it.
I'll entertain a motion right now.
You're gonna approve it?
To
Yeah.
approve the,
Well, now it's
Subject to
gonna
what we
be-
require.
The assessors authorized to collect the funds in 5 equal installments starting.
So you would
Yeah,
get
we
the
will.
letter.
2018, that'll be-
If they approve it, we will be getting the letter.
Thanks, I appreciate
resolved
that.
that the assessors have authorized to collect the funds in 5 equal annual installments in an amount of $1,420.40, starting as soon as the amount can be added to the tax rolls. And then the other one's gonna be the $627.20. So, same resolution, but different amounts.
Yes.
Motion.
Is there a second?
So Nathan, if you
I'll second
approve
that.
this, they're gonna be charged.
Yes.
Okay.
But these are existing, these are prior to our time in office.
Right.
It's been an ongoing process. We're gonna resolve this because it's already done.
However, is there no discussion behind the fact that an original homeowner, when this code was in place, should have been the one who was liable? I mean, search, survey, all that stuff doesn't show anything. Town pulled records when I purchased my home and others. I'm just concerned if it's really appropriate in that respect. Now, I'm also, again, I'm torn because I understand this has been going on for a while, and I know folks want to get business continued, but I don't know if there's anyone else who might feel the same, that would more investigation be required as to who ultimately is responsible?
I think a lot of your points are completely valid, I'll be honest with you. The reason why I wanna move forward with this is, number one, is because they're in, and the town has already incurred costs. And it seems like even though the process may have not have been perfect, there was a process, and we're so far along, I think it's time to move on. And we're gonna do our best to make sure it's documented, so you can take less of a hit. And, you know, I do have a lot of empathy for your position, but I think we have to draw a line, because someone has to pay for
Right,
it, and.
so what happens then, if by some chance there's another savvy homeowner out there who feels similar, that they've had their house for a while, and then they're not liable, and something changes?
Well, that's,
Then do I come back to try to recoup?
You could
and-
try,
I mean, I'm not trying to cause
no, and I'm
an
not,
issue, but that's really the biggest point, I think, is that, you know, the town, and no disrespect intended, with all due respect, if the town didn't do the job previously, then as the current homeowner, it just doesn't seem, I hate to use the word fair, but it
Go ahead,
just
Ray.
doesn't seem fair.
I'd be willing to leave that on the table until we ask our attorney the question of, okay, the house was built in 1970, the code changed in 1999, and we made them put the sidewalk in. They didn't wanna put the sidewalk in, we put it in with the idea we put it on the tax rolls. Are we within our legal rights to be doing that?
I think it's fine to pause it. I think we are within our legal rights, my guess is, but if you think you wanna be totally risk adverse and
Well, I
Do that?
would appreciate
ask his specific question.
then we can do that.
About liability.
So-
Is he the person who's liable for that, or is the original homeowner?
Let me just say one more thing before we do that.
Possible.
With these laws, with any law, what his question is the essential question. When laws change, situations change. Like, for example, if I were caught, sorry to use this example, but it'll get the point across. If I was caught smoking a joint, sorry, it sounds like from the 50s or something. But if I was smoking a marijuana in Colorado 10 years ago, I got caught, I might go to jail for 3 years. Guy doing it today, they might say, hey, high five, you're helping the economy. So laws change.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be arrested now for doing something from
Well,
10 years
laws,
ago.
but laws do change, and circumstances do change. So, I mean, I'm not sure.
It's
I
not
have
gonna
no
hurt us to leave it
problem.
on the table until next
Yeah.
Monday and ask the
Okay,
question.
leave it on the table.
And-
And I
Motion
think,
to leave it
I
on
think
the
it's,
I'll
Motion
just leave- I'll just rescind my motion.
Motion rescinded.
It'll be left on the table,
Okay.
right? Is it left on the table?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, sir, the motion's left on the table until Monday. So we're
Okay.
gonna talk to the attorney about your specific questions.
right,
And
and I
is there
think
another
it's a
then
good
workshop
question.
on Monday?
No, it's a town board meeting.
Oh, okay, great.
I think it's a
Okay.
good question, because it's one of those questions I
Would
keep
it be
going back
During
to.
the town, the workshop though?
We're gonna do in the workshop
So
before
it'll
the town
be
board
6
meeting.
o'clock.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Good point, Councilman Madigan.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
I was talking.
Sure.
When Madigan interrupted. But anyway, I think it's, you both did.
Sorry.
I think it's a good point, because it's one of those points I keep going back to, is that when a subdivision goes in and you know, the developer doesn't put a sidewalk in a spot, and then maybe it's not built on for 10 years, and now that person comes in and now they're responsible for it. So I think it's a good question, and I think it's something that, if we get the answer, then we know what we can do going forward and what we can't do. So I think it's excellent.
Moving on then, trapping permit. So there's 2 action items out of that. We're gonna talk on Monday about this specific case. We're gonna set up a meeting with the sidewalk people. That's it, okay. Tourist home, or trapping permit. Any comments on this to start this session?
Jim got a map together,
And I put it out here on the table.
and, because I had a conversation with Jim in the office.
I did it for Ray.
Yeah. And one of the problems is that he conveyed to me, and it messed me up, was that our town information is not the same as the county's information. Specifically, there is a triangle, we've talked about it before, on Stony Point Road near Whitehaven, at the Niagara Grid easement area, or whatever they call that, that according to the town maps, is not a park. According to the county maps, it is a park. So in my conversation about saying, you know, at the Conservation Advisory Board, when I gave them information, I gave them the best information I could give them off of our town maps. And then Jim's looking into it, and he says that, and I go, well, what are you talking about? He says, it's on the county, look at the county. And sure enough, it's a county. According to the county, it's a park. So, if that's the case, that's off the list.
So here's.
So that's automatically off the
Right.
list. And that's, 3704-144-13. Okay, so that's automatically off the list. I'll chime in with my comments.
Yes, sir.
I think that little sliver on Whitehaven, that's east of the cemetery,
Yep.
makes it very difficult to figure out where lot lines are. So I'm not sure that that's the appropriate spot. Linden Concourse, that's the 3613s. That's all intertwined in with the Nike base and the trails there.
And it's all parked.
And there are, it's parked?
All of our parks.
Oh, okay, well, how did that happen?
He's removed them.
Okay, so those are off too. The National Grid Triangle, that's the county has now said, no, the other one, Jim. That one, the county says is a park,
Right.
so that's off. The other National Grid Triangle is, it's not actually National Grid, it's the town of Grand Island. That's where our water, storage tank is. And I went and talked to John Whitney about it. I said, John, it's proposed that somebody wants to trap on this piece of property. Any concerns about that? He said, no, our facility's fenced in. You go back behind that water tank and there's a fence that encompasses the whole property. So that is an area that doesn't back up to residential properties, and it seems like it could be a potential area that could be used for trapping. The Woods Creek, I'm gonna say / bike path, but that's gonna raise concern. If you look at the, probably just easier.
It's in this one too. The
It's
long strip.
It's purple there, but it's kinda hard to see because this map is so small. The linear bike path goes through there, and it breaks up the property. There's a property to the east, coming this way, that backs up to residential properties that probably would be inappropriate.
Right.
We have to understand also that the linear bike path, part of it is parks and part of it is not parks. For whatever reason, I have no idea, we're gonna have to try to figure all this stuff
Right.
out. So there's another fairly large green piece of property right there to the west of the linear bike path. And there's a creek that runs through there, so that's pretty delineating. I would think that if we put, there are some residences there, but they're not very close. I would think if we put some restrictions on that the traps can be set no closer than 200 feet from a residence, even though the state law says 100. I don't really care what the state law says. And we make it farther to really delineate how far away it has to be. And the last one would be the open piece of property on Lode Road.
Yeah.
That essentially doesn't have any residential. And if we let it be known through website, through however we can communicate in Isle of Grand with dispatch. We put up some signs that trapping is occurring on these properties. And then, of course, the trapper has responsibility of marking things, so.
That seems like a very reasonable
Those-
assessment.
That's exactly, we came to the same conclusions I did, those particular, and I was
We
gonna
didn't
say-
talk beforehand, right?
No, we did not.
No,
Yeah,
we
The
didn't.
only thing different was, I went with 100 feet, but if we can do 250 feet. I think
Well,
it's-
the reason that it's 100 feet from a residence,
That's really
well,
close.
that could be on the property line,
Exactly.
right? So if I made it 200 feet, then it's definitely not
Not
on a
on the
property
property.
line or near a property line, because people's backyards, I mean, I'm gonna take it, for instance, the Lug Road one. Jim Dugokinski lives on, next to the right-of-way.
Right.
That goes back there,
Mhm.
and it's 1,000 feet back from his house. So, that's not a problem. The people on Wood Creek, the people on Gen Court, no, that won't be Gen Court.
That's Sidewalks Creek.
I've learned a lot about the island in this process every area.
Oh,
Well, I
yeah.
just know about it anyway, because
Well, I learned a
I
lot
had to
more.
take care of half of these parks,
This is
right?
Morningside. isn't it?
South Lane,
South Lane.
the South Lane cul-de-sac,
Yeah.
right back here.
Right here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties. The people on Long Road have deep lots, so you're essentially
Right.
impacting.
So I agree with.
impacting
200
five
feet, too.
properties.
Yeah.
And in fact, because we're doing so little, maybe we could let those 5 property owners know. It's
Yeah.
only 5.
I think it's a good idea, too.
What's your assessment on this piece?
I don't know what that is. That's Alt Boulevard?
Yeah.
It's all Boulevard paper.
No,
No.
it's already, the part that is
There's a
in.
resolution
that's-
on that.
The part that might be in contention is already posted, and the rest of it is no.
Just so it's on record, it's on record.
So the parts you seem okay with are, just to review, are up here, down by the water tower, and then down all the way by Love Road.
This one right here, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this one down here,
Mm-hmm.
and by the water tank.
Okay.
It's pretty far.
Those are the only ones that I can see that would
Word.
lend itself or work.
So, I don't wanna aggravate the situation, but you know, you
It's
guys,
okay.
you guys have the same emails I get?
Aggravated.
Well, that's not what I wanna do.
What's the third?
The new improved Nate, the non-aggregator. The, alright, so,
Those are the ones that.
this is a situation we're in, I think we can all agree. It's been a little bit of a rough ride, partially because we don't have the law worked out. But, so I get complaints about the Nike base, that's off the table, I get it. Complaints about Assumption Cemetery, it's off the table now, I get it. Illegal traps allegedly set on 2 places in Staley Road. Videos of animals that have been left out for days that are completely miserable to watch. I mean,
Yeah, but
I
you
mean, they
know,
should be called
That was on
DEC,
private property, right?
Was it days or within a 24 hour, which is New York State law?
I don't know, but it's time lapse
I
where
think
videos.
you should be checking your traps first thing every morning personally, but New York State law is 24 hours.
when something like that happens,
Uh-huh.
there's no town involvement in that. If there's a trap that's set on your property, it's not supposed to be on your property, or it's being set on a trail, I don't know if that's allowed or not, I don't know the answer to that. I don't own that property. If I didn't like it, if I had a trail running through there, I wouldn't allow any trapping, I would tell the person, no, you can't trap on my property. So, those kinds of things, and I hate to say this, and I don't mean it in a derogatory manner, but everybody perceives what goes on in the world differently. Some people won't squish a spider.
Yep.
But somebody will shoot a rabbit like that.
Right.
I don't necessarily like the idea of an animal caught and suffering, but it's what happens in the world, and we could choose to ban it, and it goes away, and we feel good about that. Or we could let it happen because some people do that as a recreational activity. And people might say, well, that's a bad recreational activity. Well, some people might say playing football's a bad So I cannot, we've passed the law that we're not banning trapping on Grand Island. We're banning trapping in parks. And we're looking at the possibility of allowing trapping in appropriate town-owned property for the recreation purposes of that particular person. Right or wrong, that's another story. We've already gone through that. It was a very contentious issue, a very difficult decision, but that's done. We've made that decision. Now it comes to, all right, you want to trap on town property, I'm gonna give you the permission, here's the parameters. Don't break the parameters, or guess what? Permission's withdrawn. If we find a trap that is off of our property, on somebody else's property, because you can't figure out where to put it, that's not my problem, that's your problem.
And you lose your license.
You're losing your ability to trap on that property. You don't check your traps in an appropriate, and I don't know how we're gonna monitor that, but maybe we monitor it because somebody says, hey, look it, here's a time lapse, here's a camera, tells you what time. So if the animal's been in there for 2 days,
And, like, I gotta ask, everything you said, I can't argue with any of those points. We went through the fight about whether it's moral to have it on Grand Island property, whether this is being too deferential to a handful of people or even one person. I understand that. The question I have right now, I have to ask it, because maybe I can get an answer. I don't, now that we're going through this once, it's a lot of trapping. Like, is it, I just have to ask, maybe Mike, you might know better than anybody else, because you trapped more recently than anybody else. Why is it profitable for all this trapping? I really don't understand why anyone on earth would want that many coyote pelts for fun.
Well, I can say one thing.
Go ahead.
Every time I let, my cat's an outdoor cat. It's a matter of time before it gets eaten. That's the regrettable thing, but my cat loves to be outside. We've had others that have, anyone that sees those little dogs at Tops that are missing, have you seen little Fido? Well, guess what? Little Fido is a Scooby snack to a coyote. I can say that I appreciate that they're being trapped on. There's 1,000 different reasons why people trap. Some of it's
So you think
monetary,
he's
some of it's sport. It is a sport. It's very challenging, extremely challenging to catch a coyote. And it is something that people do enjoy doing.
Okay, so it's just.
But I can say one thing, I do know that the way the coyotes kill those animals, they usually go for the stomach. It's not a good way for the cat to go, the dog to go. And sometimes they're even on a leash in your backyard, and that's happened with people even in town hall here.
It's not just, okay, I went up the wrong road, but it's not just coyote, it's fox.
true.
It's fox around there, he's catching fox, what else was it, the other one, otter? Was it out on there, I think?
Which probably don't.
Red
that's not
fox,
now.
gray fox.
Yeah, there's a lot of animals there. Okay,
So I guess the question is, why isn't the state banning it then?
well, the state has to deal with a larger chunk of territory. We deal with a town that's an island.
It's an animal management
Well, but
practice.
it's
That's how they manage the
So why
population.
isn't the state regulate that then?
Well, because they have to make, laws that are applicable to, everything from the Adirondacks
So
to
we were
New
just
York
talking
City.
about the ag district and how that supersedes, how is that any different than this? The state superseding with their laws.
I don't know, I'm
So how
saying,
can you pick and choose
from what I
what
saw,
you want?
from what I saw in the videos that were presented to me that were very recent, and plus,
But that was on private property, and they should have called the DEC
right,
immediately. I mean,
And you
that
know
was-
what,
that-
I
that-
think that it's a good point, Chris, and we ought to put it on our website.
They should be calling DEC immediately, that should be.
different than somebody hunting
DEC
when
should
they're not
handle
supposed to
it.
be hunting, or where they're not supposed to be hunting, or how to
so you
see
think
things.
on these
Well,
properties?
I don't know that, I didn't, have we heard or seen, did it actually say that it was more than 24 hours?
And also we heard, well, that's what, I don't know, I'm
Because I
not,
heard a complaint, and I do know that animal was taken out of the trap at 9:30 in the morning, Friday.
so, okay, I feel
That
much
was one
more,
of the
I
complaints.
feel much more comfortable that we got some of these away from like Nike Base, he pulled that out, Extension Center, he pulled that out. I am concerned about some of the belligerent behavior, because, again, this is the trapper of the year. If we're dealing with a trapper of the year and we're having this type of contentious dialogue, what do we do when the worst trapper on Grand Island applies,
But,
it's a lot of work.
but you're,
And so
you're
this is a
making,
lot of
you're
work.
making, I mean, you're hearing one side of a story. Clearly, the number of pictures you see, there's stalking that's occurring, there's a lot of following, a lot of activity that should not be occurring. So, I mean, if I were that person, I think I'd get a little bit upset as well. So, I mean, it's something,
I've
there's
seen-
some activity I think that's occurring that probably should not be. And if this gentleman that we're talking about is reacting in rebellion against that behavior, I can kind of empathize with that to a point, as long as it doesn't cross certain lines. Because I think that there's some inappropriate behavior occurring with this gentleman who's doing a legally acceptable activity.
So I'm not gonna convince you guys. So we have these 3 properties that seem like everyone here agrees upon. So, listen, are we allowed, did you want him to talk? Or Mr. Riley wants to say something?
You've allowed people to speak at every other issue so far tonight.
Yeah,
I
but
think
are
if
we
the
gonna
board-
talk
if the
about
board
are we
agrees
gonna,
upon it,
my question
I
is, if we're gonna do this, are we gonna talk about the issue that we're talking about? Are we gonna talk about the issue of the properties that have been asked for,
Focus.
and not about the idea that trapping is good or bad, or whatever the case may be?
Mr. Riley, can you talk, do you wanna add something about these 3 properties?
It's Dr. Riley, first of all.
Dr. Riley, I'm sorry.
Yes, I can speak to the application process as well, because that's the question at hand, is the application and the applicant. The issue, as far as I'm concerned, is that, with all due respect, Councilman Madigan is speaking from a position of ignorance. The first cameras that were put up by the trapper. The cameras that we put up are on our property, which we are entirely within our rights to do at any point we choose to. That is not stalking. Putting trail cameras is not stalking.
Okay.
And the presumption that we're in some way doing something wrong on that ground, go back to the original complaint that we raised with the town, where we actually highlighted the fact that we were actually, in many ways, harassed by the trapper who took property off of our land that is very clearly posted. So those comments I take umbrage with. And
Thank you.
but let me go to the bigger issue here, which is, if we're gonna talk about the question of these 3 properties with this applicant, that I think is something that needs to be raised. This applicant has trapped illegally in a number of places. This applicant has placed traps on trails and within 5 feet of maintained obvious trails that were used by people, pets, horses. I walked out this weekend and saw a number of traps that were located right off of a trail that the Sparks people use when their horses go over on next to the campground. This is not something that is an isolated incident. There are at least 5, 6, 7 incidences of this. So my question,
property is that on?
so it is private property, but my point is that it's right off of a
But the
trail.
DEC should have caught it.
So but
Dr.
the issue
Riley,
is,
I'm gonna cut you off. Thank you, sir. Listen, I know I'm not gonna persuade you guys. I think it is, I do think we're putting I think there's a level of liability we're walking into with this because of the complaints I've heard from the community.
Liability in what regard? What's the risk?
You saw the video I saw, you guys saw it, didn't you?
You mean that someone could get hurt by a trap? Because I think the
No, we're hurt by
probability of that is
a
zero.
ravenous, let me finish, I'm hurt by a ravenous coyote who's losing its mind because it's starving and stuck in a trap and growling and going crazy like I saw today. And I saw, if a kid, I always thought about the trap. From this point forward, I thought, well, the traps aren't that dangerous. That coyote looked like it would tear not only its own arm off, but kid's arm off.
So do you call the DEC at all, and when you got these complaints?
I just got the video today. So I think you're right about that.
I mean, they'll be all over that. They should be called immediately.
So let's go back to the
If there's
land.
law,
Let's go back to the land.
Well, they
We
come out
can't,
and check it out.
they'll come out and say if it's legal or not, and if they're not checking them or whatever. I mean, it's out of our jurisdiction if it's not on town property.
Well, it's out of our jurisdiction
They
because
should
we
be
didn't
calling
pass a law on it.
immediately. I mean, it's.
So what's the next course of action?
Are we ready to pass permitting?
I don't know, we got the permit, we have the additional information that was asked for.
What is this?
We've gone through the properties.
I'd like to pass a motion then to approve the permit for Josh based on the properties that we've just identified.
The 3 SDLs.
Yes.
I don't know what I did with
Anyone willing to second
Is that
that?
No, this is mine.
That's yours?
You had it, it was over there.
There's two, what,
Oh,
two
I flipped them
13?
over.
Let's see if you do the same one.
It'd be 231211,
50,
3703 3142, and 50 2131.
Yeah, right.
It's easier to look on this one here. Here.
I just wanted to say, I didn't have to stop anywhere.
That's why I got my
Where
first
my
one.
house is
This one,
carrying the traps.
so those three, there,
Here, pull it down. This one here, this is a linear bike path. Woods Creek runs through here. And then
That's where we're gonna put
you
conditions
have
on.
South Plain cul-de-sac down here, where these properties would back up to it. All the rest of these properties, this is Long Road, and the houses up here, it's quite a distance away. The linear bike path back breaks that off with Woods Creek, and 200. And maybe we want to keep them away from the linear bike path too, which is only a small section of the property, but we put
we should just instruct them that way.
100 feet off of the bike path. And again,
200 feet. Oh, no, I was gonna say,
I want to keep them away from, whatever your choice, I don't care. But something more than the state regulations of 100 for a residence, a church, a school, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't think that was sufficient in this case. So, like you,
So
it's
that's
your
my
motion.
motion?
It's your motion, so I don't know what kind of
I'm okay with,
restriction.
I'm okay with, 200 feet for houses, you said 100 feet from the bike path, and those three properties that were mentioned, which I'm not gonna be able to regurgitate.
Yeah, Patty's
I
got it.
would put Baskin House in.
Right. Who, would anyone be willing to second that motion?
Yeah, the bike path, I'd like to see 200 feet.
200 feet from the bike path?
Yeah.
200, I'm fine with that.
Well, you need a second for this, second, now you can have your discussion.
Oh.
Is there discussion on this?
Chris just said he wants 200 feet from the bike
200
path.
feet from the bike path, so we're gonna modify that?
Did someone second it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, no.
Got it?
I have one more question. And I don't know if it's just rumor or whatnot, but one of the things I saw where the person said the Irish trapper until the trapper came in and shot it.
That's what they can do.
What kind of gun do they use? What kind?
Probably a handgun. No,
Yeah. They're not allowed to use a rifle.
Or a 22, I don't
Well,
think.
probably a shotgun, yeah.
Air
Use a
rifles.
shotgun. And
They don't have to have a license in order to have that either.
not a shotgun, but I mean,
To
do
dis-
they
to-
really use a shotgun? That would do quite a bit of damage to a car.
I don't know, but if there's a question on that, they should call DEC then, because that's, that's a DEC question. They should go out and check that then.
Because it was my understanding they can't use a shotgun, or a handgun or a
No,
a
it's a
22.
town ordinance. It says
Right.
you can't.
So that's something you call the DEC and have them check.
Yeah, if somebody sees it and that's what they're doing, then they should call it DEC, that's the law.
So I would think using a shotgun, you can do a lot of damage to a pump, right?
Are we sure that he can't use a handgun?
If he, I don't think so.
Can't shoot a rifle.
Yeah, you can't, not on
It's a
the
town
island.
ordinance.
Not a rifle.
Yeah, it is. It's considered a rifle.
A handgun's considered a rifle?
Yeah, handguns aren't,
Rifle.
only shotguns are allowed on the island for shooting.
Because
Except
I
for
heard
on fruit
originally I thought,
But what I'm asking then, the state law allows a trapper to dispatch an animal.
But town ordinances still apply, so there's limits to what you can discharge on the island.
Okay. Well, I knew that.
Right.
I knew that. I knew there was no
Even
shotgun.
with trapping, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So how are you killing the coyote?
You may end up clubbing it.
Air
Many
rifles.
different ways.
I don't
I'm
think
just
you
checking,
club it.
for describing it here, I'm gonna let someone else do that.
So can I be?
So a
discuss-
different object is used other than a gun usually.
There's different ways. Many different ways.
I don't wanna
Share
know.
that with me.
Okay, so this is the question, this is the point I have to make before we vote on this. And it's a very small patches of land. There's very limited demand. He's made mixed comments about why he does it. Several times I've heard him say he does it for money. So we're basically subsidizing a very limited use of his property for one individual to engage in his, in his recreational or his commercial activity.
I think we've covered that.
And I hear what you're saying, but I'm not limiting it to the one individual.
So we're
Another
gonna-
person comes with another permit,
Actually,
another
there is a
person comes
second
with
one,
another
right?
one, another person comes with another permit.
So we're gonna go through this process, we're gonna go through this process again and again?
I think it's gonna be pretty simple now.
It's only those three parcels.
I think it's pretty simple now. Because
You've identified the three.
I've looked at
parcels.
all the properties, the only one that I would change is the other parcel on Stony Point that apparently is called a park. All the rest of them, I wouldn't change my opinion on, and I'm not sure what other town board members would do, but I'm gonna think that that's gonna be the case. If somebody comes in and asks to trap on, Woods Creek east of the bike path, the
No.
answer from us are gonna be no.
So the discussion's over, I guess. Any other comments from anybody?
Yeah, I understand what you're,
Go ahead.
I understand what you're saying, Nathan, because, you know, I agree with you as well. Why I would move forward is right now we do have a law in the books, and this person has the right to trap. I'm glad that we've limited it to these three. There was, we've taken like, I don't know, 2, 3 of these off the book, plus we identified other parks which came off, and, that's the only reason I feel we need to go forward. But I agree with you 100%. For me, it's inappropriate on town land, but we have a law, and I think we have to abide by it.
So, let's call for a vote.
Madigan,
I,
Delacup,
Aye.
Veronica, Kinney, McMurray.
Nay. Okay,
next.
moving on. Tourist homes, I want to set a date for the public hearing for the law?
Are we ready? Just asking the question, are we ready? Is that draft in the final form that we're all interested in? I already know my opinion on it, but is everybody interested in saying that that's the draft that we're willing to vote on? After we've gotten comments from the planning board, from the public, from our own, whatever the case may be. Because I don't wanna send a public hearing on a draft that we're gonna change to have another public hearing on another draft.
Are we going to be voting on the draft that planning board sent forward?
No. We're working on the last version of the
Okay.
draft. Yeah.
I know that there was a few issues that I had concerns with. The prior draft, I don't know what the new one looks like.
The one that got sent to the planning.
There's one that was sent to the planning board, right?
We sent it, when are you setting it for? When do you wanna set it for?
As
December
soon as
19th?
possible. Yeah, fine.
Because if you set it for December 19th, we ought to be able to have the little things worked out by then. Whoever like wants some changes, or anybody else wants some changes, and we get the changes, then we get it published when we need to get it published.
Yeah, that's right. So let's do that, why don't we do that on Monday? I'll put on the workshop on Monday, so if you have modifications you wanna put into it, let's have a deadline of Monday. So we'll work it out on Monday.
Okay.
And then we'll set a public hearing, and, yeah, move on.
Okay.
I really, can I just make a piece of commentary here on this law? You know, I had a friend visit me over Thanksgiving, and he sent me a text, he said, do you have Airbnb on the island? And the answer's gonna be no.
Well, the answer's gonna be yes,
What, when?
because Airbnb is all over the place. Run off my room.
Oh, yeah, all right, right, if
My
you're
kid
living,
moves out, I got a room at the end of my house, got a bathroom right next to it, rent out my room.
to some extent, to a limited extent. The other question is this, you know, the other part of it is, I gotta say, unless I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure you guys can do it. Where are the, where are the complaints? I haven't heard one specific complaint.
We've had lots.
No, I heard generalized complaints. I heard like, I hate them. I have never heard, I've never got an email from someone saying, this happened last night, I'm mad about it.
Why, specifically from the police, Mrs. Martin, is it Mrs. Martin?
Specific, what she said, I can't remember.
People wandering onto the property and people coming over. and-
Right, we hear generalized complaints, but like not X date, this happened, come look it out, come fix it.
There's a lot.
Come fix it.
Yeah, I think that's,
Or, and I've asked the
we can,
police, and I've asked the police as well to comment on this, and there's not a massive amount of outlet, of
we've,
backlash on this.
we've gone through this,
Okay,
right?
well, we'll see you on Monday with your comments. I'm really worried about it, but hey. Broadband update,
So
Deb.
actually, I have some questions on this as well, I need to be a little more educated on this. What is it, what's the advantages, what's driving this? Because I don't quite grasp it.
What's driving broadband?
Yeah, what's the need?
It connects all of our, we can connect all our municipality buildings at an amazing cost of reduction.
I'll tell you what it is.
And not only
Talk
that,
about
is we're going to have a faster speed, we're gonna have more, dependability than we have right now, which is really bad. Then we have the ability to bring it to commercial. I mean, there's so many,
Would we make money off of it?
yeah, we could,
We
yes, we
could,
could,
but
yes, we could.
at what cost is this
Even
gonna
as, well, we don't know, that's why you do feasibility study.
be? At $9,000 though.
Yes,
It's pretty
but-
Which is about a
Which
month's worth of,
concerns me.
Which
a
is-
month's of
which
internet
is-
costs for this high school.
Which is
But we're
probably,
not the high school.
But it's still, it's a very reasonable, go ahead, Deb, I'm sorry.
which is probably $20,000 to $30,000 less than we would have to pay for feasibility study. Right now, because the county, and look at this, they're doing an island-wide county feasibility on this, which tells you they feel there's a huge need, and then they feel there's a huge saving as well. For us to do, they're doing it at 40,000, we're doing it at 10,000. It would put us right in the catbird seat for a pilot program. If they choose a town that's already got a feasibility study, already knows what the cost analysis is gonna be. We can't really look for funding unless we have a feasibility, know what the cost of all the different poles and everything is gonna be. This particular, proposal, I think the wrong, there, the ones I couldn't find their notes. This particular thing, we took off the library, which I would like to still leave on, because it is a county building. And we also took off, the cost of the school, going through their whole cost analysis of 2,500. We would still, leave them on as far as the polling goes, so that we would know how much of the work would be for the school, because if we're gonna go forward, we would bring them on as a subscriber.
They don't, some of the board members don't want this, so why
Yeah.
would they want it? I don't.
I heard most of them though, is that true?
What's this?
Listen, that's fine. They can be responsible for that decision.
But if they're the biggest opportunity and they don't want it, I gotta ask what the opportunity is for us. How much are we paying for broadband
No,
right now?
it's not paying for broadband, Mike, you're missing the point.
And you're
We have-
also
We have third world internet for our municipal buildings, for download speeds, for communication, for everything. So it's not just about the challenges of today.
We're getting complaints on that?
I'm complaining about it.
Well,
I'm
not
complaining
only
about it.
that,
Let me finish. So so it's to attract business down the line, 4 or 5 years from now, if you have faster internet speeds, faster connection speeds, faster dial-up speeds, then trust me, eventually, the school board will be on board with this. When they see the connection speeds you can get for the technology wing, for the high school, I don't understand why you'd be against it.
Well,
Let
this
me
is
ask
what
you
I'm
that.
hearing.
Go ahead.
What I'm hearing though is the next technology, the Wi-Fi, the radio, the et cetera, is replacing fiber optics. it's on the verge of.
It's not true. Here, so the
You need
next,
to
so
talk to some tech people,
it's
not
like,
just some people that are sitting on a school board that really have not looked into the background of what this
the
technology is all
feasibility study will
about.
tell you that as well.
What are we
Exactly.
losing right now by not having this? What's the
What we're
opportunities
losing
we're
is
missing?
going into the next generation.
You're
And not only that,
Go ahead.
is the commercial network and the industrial parkway, parks that we have. We have an opportunity, once we have that backbone in there, we have the opportunity to have them be subscribers. And big companies such as yourself would like that kind of thing. Companies coming in are looking for that. They don't wanna have to put their own network in order to
They
get
can't do
faster
it.
speed to communicate with the whole world like this.
If you remember the conversation we had with potential candidates for our cable communications board, which title's gonna change, did we not have one individual who told us all about the fact that he used to put a business here on Grand Island, when he found out he couldn't get fast internet?
Right.
He didn't put it here.
And also
So
one
now-
of the other
I
young
have
men.
another question besides that.
Okay.
Is this a stepping stone to the possibility of residential?
It could be.
It
Oh,
could
well,
be.
2 yeses and a no.
No, Jim's saying it's not, but it could be. Look at, let me just,
That's
let me,
surprising.
Beth, can I take a
It
step back and
costs way
explain?
too much to punch it into all these neighborhoods.
It would be very expensive,
And by
but
the time
if they
that
paid
happens,
for it,
you have a-
if they paid for it, it's not, I don't know what you mean up. I mean, you think there's gonna be satellites broadcasting Wi-Fi down to
At
us in
some
the next 10
point,
years?
but Why, they don't even, why didn't they do it in Buffalo?
I
They
can't talk
got
about
it in
it.
Buffalo, why haven't they pushed it in the neighborhoods of Buffalo?
Every
That's
major
what they're
municipality,
trying
do
to
you know what they're doing in
How
Nashville
much?
right now?
Because of the cost.
Do you know what they're doing in Nashville right now? They're lining the whole, Google's paying the whole city to be lined with fiber optics.
I'm not against
I mean-
this, I'm just saying, it's not, you can't sell it like that, you have to sell it. you
Well,
have
if
to-
you let me finish your sentence, I'll sell it. Can I just step in for a second? Okay, go ahead, Bev, you wanna finish your statement? Go ahead.
I'm just, a couple of things I wanna say, before you guys can just all jump in. We also had, another young man in his thirties who sat here and said, he has to go to Amherst to do his job. He does his job by a computer. He could not do it here because the internet was so slow. We do have a lot of home-based businesses, a lot, hundreds probably, here in Grand Island. I'm one of those people that does a lot of home-based computer work. He had literally, and Mary West, who's chair of the Economic Development Board, she leaves Grand Island, goes to Amherst to her business to do her computer business because it's too slow here. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of talent that you guys allowed me to put on that board, and it's exciting, and they're very excited, and they voted unanimously to move forward with this contract, with the agreement the school would be a subscriber. If the school wants to drag,
Are they going to be a
no,
subscriber?
if they're gonna come on board, it would be as a
It sounds like a big
subscriber.
if right now.
No,
though.
I'm not even saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying, but if they decide to come in later, it will be a subscriber. I'm disappointed, but that they would not even look at this or sit down with the tech people, because their tech people were on board with this.
Because they said theirs was fast enough, but.
But you know, the thing is that we are a fluent
Let's go one by
community
time, one
with
by time.
wonderful schools that should be looking towards the future and what we can give our
So-
students, and that's faster internet.
Go ahead,
That's the way
Chris.
it is.
Well, I'm just saying, that's a comment that I heard.
What is the school?
They're fast.
Can't be anything else other than Time Warner, right?
Can I come?
Yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
All right. Let me get right to where you're going. Where's the savings to the town of Grand Island if we do a feasibility study? Roughly, you're paying $25,000 to $30,000 a year for Time Warner lines. You're gonna eliminate those.
Well, this is a third of that cost right here.
Yes. For life.
But
But that's a
eliminate it,
lot. For life.
what price though?
No,
What's
that's
the-
what the feasibility will tell you. But the other issue, rather the other issue is the speed access between your water plant, your sewer plant, your highway department, and your senior citizen center. Right now, you don't have the speeds unless you wanna pay for them. The other one is, if you start connecting up all your lift stations, we're using we're using a very old, communication system, doing our communication systems from the lift stations back to the water plants and the sewer plants and so forth. If you put those in your system, you're eliminating the old, and I'm talking about old antiquated, communication systems. You're gonna be able to upgrade that and start moving in that direction. The real benefit is financial, and that's why you're looking at the study. The study then will say, well, you're gonna offset your cost of $25,000 to $30,000 and replace it with $1,000, but that's for life. So your payback maybe, and there's where the study's gonna tell you, what's it gonna cost you to put the backbone in place, what's it gonna cost you to put a leg in place, and what opportunities are there? Right now, what I'm hearing at the table are all the great opportunities if you had a backbone that connected to the state ring, which goes across Grand Island.
Just one question though, I think we must have at least a thumb wag. It's gonna cost, we know that in general, something like this is gonna cost $300,000,
No,
200,000.
I don't have a thumb wag, I don't do thumb wags.
Can I use?
Well, I
find
want a
out,
thumb wag before
Because
we
your
say we're
thumb
gonna
wag could
spend
be 2 million, you
$9,000.
think your thumb wag could be 200,000, why would you
Why
want?
can't we at least let people know
Other
that
communities have done it for several
generally
hundred
how much
thousand.
is it gonna cost?
Other communities have done it for several hundred thousand.
Several hundred
300,000, 250.
200,000, several hundred thousand. I don't understand why you don't wanna know what it's really gonna cost, because eventually we have to go forward.
Deb, can I talk for a
Because it
second?
costs $9,000.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna stop for a second. I wanna talk for a second. First of all, you're afraid about leapfrogging technology. Best way not to get leapfrogged is to stay at, this isn't cutting edge, this isn't bleeding edge. It's right where we should be for a community. Now, you're a well-traveled guy, you know the world, you work with people from all over the world. Ray, you're all over the place, I know you. We have terrible, terrible infrastructure for the internet, which prevents even our waste facilities from downloading certain softwares and programs that make things more efficient. It prevents our whole town from taking advantage of services that are available and that will be available in the years to come. By doing this, we'll be investing in educational opportunities for our kids, in efficiency programs for the future for the building departments and for the different departments of the town. And the fact that we got the feasibility study down to $9,000, this is very cheap. What that means is they're going to walk all the roads, tell us exactly what kind of hardware we need, exactly tell us where we need it, where it needs to be lined, and then we can assess it. I think it's fair in this day and age to look at it when so many communities are embracing this to say, hey, what should we do? Is this worth for us looking into? And the price tag of $9,000, considering that's a fraction of what it costs to fix a broken pipe on the island. Go ahead, Ray.
So, what one needs to do is they need to figure out whether it's a good idea or whether it's gonna be, you're gonna get a return on investment, right? And you have to put up money in order to do that. And where do you get that money? It comes from the taxpayers and stuff like that. Well, how about this? We have a projected revenue, specifically, we have a projected revenue in our mortgage debts of X number of dollars. We just got that email from Pam that told us that actual revenue was considerably more. And $9,000 is like nothing compared to.
It's still taxpayers' dollars.
I get that. But we have the ability now to take some of that money, not all of it even, I get a windfall and I'm gonna spend it all. No, I'm just gonna spend a little bit of it to go about this. And I think we should put more pressure on the school. I think we should put more pressure on the school and tell the school, look, we got this down to this. Your part of this is gonna be included. This is the deal, all right? It's not a threat, it's just reality. You wanna partner with us in this? I think it'd be really, really good. You ought to talk to your tech people, you gotta get some information on that, because it's not very much money. And if we wanna go 1/3, 2/3, we'll think about it. But
Theirs
but
is
the-
already
I know that.
taken out, it's
Well,
2,500.
we add it back in. And we tell them, but if we go through with this, and it comes to fruition, and you're going to use our internet, we will be charging you, and you're gonna be hard pressed to tell the taxpayers that you'd rather spend $20,000 on Time Warner that's at this speed versus fiber optics that will give you this speed, and the children can be educated at a different kind of level. So, it's not a threat, it's reality. It's like, this is what's happening, so we're gonna look at this.
So Ray, can I just jump in for the school board part of it?
Now,
So I understand the school board was not responsive. Part of the reason was because the presentation did not go as planned. Because the original speaker, they asked us not to use that speaker for reasons I don't want to get to today that are damaging to the speaker itself. So, and I also did not participate in the presentation deliberately because I didn't want to be a lightning rod for criticism of the presentation. I think part of the problem with was the presentation to the school. I think the presentation was
not done the way it was intended to be done, because the person from the cable advisory board who wanted to do it was asked not to do it for their relationship with the school. And so that's something you guys should be aware of. So it was kind of like slammed together. So basically, the last minute I said, Jim, you're going to have to do it, because I can do it, but I'm afraid that if I put my, that is my project, it'll be even worse. So Jim did it. Yeah, it was off the cuff,
Right.
essentially.
I
The
couldn't make it.
person who wanted to do it couldn't do it.
Right.
They asked them not to do it, so it was not a good presentation.
They should ask for another, talk to them and see what they have to say about it. Maybe they can change their mind.
So I just have to ask this question again. So let's say it is several $100,000. What's the likelihood that we're gonna pursue that kind of a cost?
If the county
Depends what
gets
your
it,
payback period is. I'll give you an analogy. People came to my house, Solar Liberty, said, put that thing up on your roof. You can generate electricity for yourself, and it's gonna cost you this amount of money. And I'm
That's
gonna go,
being
whoa.
subsidized
whoa,
through
whoa,
hell,
whoa,
though.
whoa.
I mean, by,
I'm talking about money, Mike.
Like,
I'm talking about
okay,
this
yeah,
amount of money. It's gonna cost you, Ray. We got a whole bunch of subsidies, but Ray, it's gonna cost you this amount of money. Oh, that's a lot of electric bills. Yes, it is. It's 5 years and 4 months of your average electric bills. So in 5 years and 4 months, I could pay that off. I'm 3.5 years into it. So pretty soon, I'm gonna have paid that $8,000+ that I had to pay, and the rest of it is money that I don't have to pay National Grid anymore.
forever.
I don't
And
At least
know.
you
for
know,
20 years
there-
while I have the warranty on
the
the
only thing
panel.
is, and I see what you're saying, I would love to put their feet to the fire. But I don't, I look at it and think, are those board members gonna change anytime soon? I'm hoping we can educate them. My thought is that, to move forward and let them catch up to us,
What if they
why
never
keep-
catch up though?
When if they
Will that
never catch up,
become
Mike,
unaffordable for
then
us?
we look at what we're going, no, we look for what we're gonna do for us, period. That's why we broke it out, that's why we came up with the $9,000 instead of $13,000. So we see what we do, then we know, is it feasible, then we have an opportunity to look for money, then we have an opportunity to look at the county and say, okay, when you get your feasibility study done this year, what are you planning on doing? And hey, just look at Grand Island, we're ready. We've already done our feasibility study, this is what it cost you. It would be so easy for them to do a pilot study on Grand Island because we're an island. They don't have to worry about town lines, they don't have to worry about interconnecting infrastructure, they don't have to worry about any of that for Grand Island. It would be a perfect pilot for the county if they're going to move forward. And I don't think that, or the state, and I don't think they would be doing a feasibility study if they weren't serious
Mike, I
about
think,
it.
Mike, your questions, I mean this, your questions are valid. We have to make sure that we're not getting into something that's a boondoggle that's gonna waste taxpayer money. But I really think if you inspect this, it's a legitimate cost to try to understand what the opportunity here is for Grand Island. And, and you guys know, I think you heard as much as I do, this is a major complaint for businesses on the island.
That's just businesses.
Right.
It's just people who use the internet.
Right.
You buy an extreme package that's gonna give you 50 gigabytes. Or not give you, without gigabytes.
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, and you
Right.
test it, and one time it's 9, and the next time it's 3, and you never get above 10.
Right.
But you're paying for extreme for 50 and you don't get it,
Right.
And
and you can't
eventually,
do your work.
eventually the school is gonna be behind the 8 ball. And they aren't gonna be looking for faster internet, they'd be wonderful.
So the question he said, the reason why he said no about I'm gonna jump into this because there's 2 answers on that. The reason why he said no for residential, because it would take a lot of additional wiring to do a residential neighborhood. But if a place like Heron Point wanted to
Yeah.
put in some servers in, it'd be pretty easy. And suddenly those things may actually be, very marketable.
Yeah,
You know,
some of the
so-
young professionals.
Places
wanna
where it's
live there.
easy to put in the wiring, or a new subdivision that says, hey, we wanna put, we can market the subdivision as state of the art because we're gonna have the fastest internet in Western New York. We're gonna line up. That's how it would go to residential. We couldn't do it,
No.
but if a private developer said, hey, this is a way to market us, or we can put in the infrastructure for it, it's just like anything else, any kind of plumbing or.
You can put it into, Elderwood, the new senior apartments.
So you don't think you should go,
They could
anybody
drag
should go
it
back to
out,
the
and if
school
I
board?
didn't think they would drag it out and in light of what you guys have said, because I thought it was only 2 people. But in light of what they said, well, obviously there's more that aren't interested in it. don't have a great knowledge for it, what, are we just keeping ourselves from moving forward?
What if we do this? What if we approve the $9 grand so we can get the feasibility study going? And I will make a pledge to take someone back to the school board.
Because they
to see
still
the
can get on
2,500.
board at the
Because they can
2,500.
jump in anytime they want. We cut their part of it out of it.
Is there any way, cause I think they may be thinking, if it's $500,000, where are they gonna come up with, if they're gonna split it with the town 250? I think they're thinking that. down the
Probably.
road,
Good point.
But
Which you
as a
need
s-
to think that way.
Well, I do, but I also think that through the state and through being a school, there probably is better funding for them to
E-rate,
get money to that.
That's what I
And
thought.
so
Yeah.
I think the state wants to improve these things from what I've been reading. They want, and I think they're gonna invest in that infrastructure, so there
You're
may
right.
be monies coming up soon. And if they're a school, I would think they should, that's the selling point for them. They should be jumping on this, cause I think they'll be the
You would
first
think,
one to do
because
it.
there's a lot of money in the E-rate fund.
And be honest with you, in the
So that's what
presentation,
I'd like. is-
one of the concerns that the school
Go ahead,
had
go ahead.
was, if they were partners with us on this, they would not be excited about us building and connecting it to the industrial parks and so on. But that'd be a revenue generator for us. That's why it was almost after the discussion, and I went back to talk to Amherst and Sweet Home about, was the town of Amherst actually took on the role of doing the internet broadband project for Amherst and Sweet Home. Sweet Home became subscriber of one of the lines they want to use. They still had their own private contracts and everything else. But the town actually took responsibility then for the maintenance and all the other issues that came along with it. So the town was the main supporter of it, the main installer of it, and the school became a subscriber of it. That takes a lot of the burden off, because one of the things I heard from the school was, well, who's gonna maintain it? If the thing breaks, who's gonna do this? So that means that if the town actually is doing it and then becomes a subscriber, and then we actually work on the legs, they get financing, they get E-rate, they get smart schools money, they're getting state money. So the bottom line is, they have a better generator to put in the facility they want at a much more cost-effective.
They just wanna rent.
Exactly. And the biggest issue for them is they're paying close to $70,000 a year for leasing of Time Warner, and they're stuck at 20 megs. If they want to go to 50 megs to do their STEM lab, it's going to cost them twice as much money. So the study actually turns around and says, if you want to stay where you are, this is the payback. But if you plan on growing, this is what your costs are going to be in the future. Your payback's going to be a lot less. But that's what the study is going to do for both them and us.
Has Amherst actually installed it? or
Yes,
they're
we've
just
already
doing
built
the
one.
fees?
Yes, I already built one in Amherst.
So Amherst has it.
Amherst and Sweet Home is done, including their police department has their own private network, and they're
Now-
connected, yes.
Now here's the thing: if some of your concerns would be more, I would be sharing them if there was a viable free market alternative. There isn't. There's no viable free market alternative here. There's none, and there's none coming. And I don't think there's going to be any coming for the next 10 years. They will milk us on this like they've done for a long time.
So
That's the
this
problem.
feasibility study, will it show where revenues are driven so that you
Yes.
can figure
Where
out?
your revenue is gonna prove what your bills are.
And how much you could build a school?
It's gonna show you what the cost of the school, the cost of the line. If they do the revenue study inside the school, they actually do they take your bills, they look at what BOCES age doing, they look at what E-rate's gonna do. The same thing applies to us. We would turn around and look at it as a leg process. In other words, put a backbone all the way down baseline. And then say, okay, we're that connected to our water sewer plant and our town hall. Okay, from there on, what would it cost for this leg to go out to Love Road? What would it cost to go down Ransom? And you would have a cost per leg and understand how you would unfold that.
So the
biggest thing is to put the backbone in
The
place.
feasibility study will have to answer the question
It'll answer
that someone just asked it. How do we maintain this thing?
Mm-hmm.
That's the question. Because what they would do, like in a city where there's already municipal broadband or there's already private broadband, is the problem starts when the local publicly run broadband charges such a low rate or it's free that they don't have money revenue to support it. So that's what the feasibility would show us. Are we going to have enough money to keep this thing maintained and operated so that so it doesn't just become a white elephant for the town?
Right.
So hopefully that's what we can. And if based on our initial discussions with these people, they said, yeah, you're a perfect case for this situation.
But now-
I got something here that Pat
Go ahead.
just gave me.
Go ahead.
Kind of remember doing this. Motion was made by Councilman Kenny, seconded by myself, just authorized the supervisor, signed an agreement not to exceed $7,000 for a feasibility study. subject to the condition that Granite School District shares half. So we were at
We're at seven
7,
already.
and, you know, you said the $1,000 for the library, makes sense. It just makes sense. If we're gonna spend 9 years, we'll spend 10, to figure out
It connects us
about the
to the
library. The
county,
library is
too.
an important part of the
Yeah.
town, important part of the county, if that's what we're looking at, it would be
In the
10,
library
not 9.
the library gets E-rate money, which is, they pay 60% of whatever it costs for them to build their net.
So, I mean, we already discussed it, and we already thought it was a good idea. This is gonna cost us a little bit more money, yes, it is, but
And I think it keeps us from having the school, cause, you know, the more we talk about it, the more you look at, you know, the subscribers thing and what they're doing in Amherst. It makes sense for them to be a subscriber and not a partner.
I think what Chris said is probably true. The school's thinking, geez, that's $500,000 how are we gonna get into this? We, the town, would say $500,000, well, I suspect we would end up bonding that. Maybe not,
And getting money
maybe
for
not,
it as well.
but you would be bonding it,
Well,
you would be
see,
paying it over a period of time, and you would be collecting money
It is.
from subscribers.
I would hope we're as conservative as the schools, as far as spending money though, right?
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
But-
as a government, we gotta look out for our business owners, not, them.
They don't,
They don't.
exactly.
So,
Right.
I mean, that's a huge.
We also look out
thing.
for our residents and the quality of life, especially
If
for
we-
students going forward.
If we built this thing, I find it hard to believe that the school district would say, you know what, we're gonna keep paying this Time
But
Warner,
it's-
or you get 100 times better service from you
In this
guys.
day and age, when you try to do cost sharing with
Yeah.
the school, they should be right on board saying, yeah, this is another
Well,
avenue, just like we
I
did.
would like us to revisit that if we could.
I think one of the things that I got, and just a sentiment, was if you believe enough in going, then we'll trust, because you're gonna go with us or without us, obviously, then
Yeah.
it's maybe something we ought to consider. But if they push back and we don't move anything, then they're gonna take into consideration, well, they're not believing it, why are we getting involved? So it really takes who's gonna lead on this
No,
issue.
but I agree with you guys, it wasn't sold properly, cause I think you can sell it properly, and I think if we all talk to them collectively, I think we could swing them, but you know, the governor's saying, start sharing with the towns, figure out ways to
Yeah.
do joint things, well, what a better thing to do? I mean,
Can you
So
guys,
we're looking at
I'll talk
everything.
to
We're
them, you
looking
guys
at
have more
sharing
influence
with
than
all
I
of your
do.
county too.
When's our next, meeting with the board?
Tonight.
Oh, no.
January, the end of January.
There's
last
a
meeting
town
in
board,
January.
he's saying it's a school board meeting
Yeah.
tonight.
Your school,
Let's just go
school
ahead.
town, the end of January.
I would
So
like
I'll,
to
so
move
I'll make a
forward, we
motion,
can
I'll make a
still
motion
go
to approve
through.
it. Is there a second?
Second.
And then we can also, and also, subject to the fact that we will go to them in January to see if we can get their additional support. I think they'll jump on it, hopefully. Is there a second, is there any more discussion on this
So
point?
just real quick discussion, so the consultants, are we getting bids for that, or do we already have someone identified?
We have some identified. and
These are
it's
the
only one
same
service
people
in
that
the-
are doing
the
the
county.
county.
It's the same one that we already
You would
approved.
already,
Yes,
yeah,
Yeah.
starting back in August.
And our,
They're not the ones
so
actually
at your
selling the
suggestion, we
broadband.
should go to the, it's
They're
10,500 actually.
These are, they'll be our consultant.
I would do it.
Your motions, I think the library should be included.
Okay,
I think it's important, that's
So
a
it'd be
very
10,500.
important facility, so it's $10,500.
so I'll make a motion to approve $10,500 for the feasibility study. Is there a second? All in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call.
McMurray,
Nay, or wait, sorry. By the way, in another language I speak, nay means yes. So, aye.
Veronica,
Whoa.
Philika,
Aye.
Madigan.
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, that was weird.
What language is
Yeah, that
that?
was awkward.
It's a different language.
In Korean, nay means yes.
Really?
Nay. That's this, yeah. So, I used
That sounds bad.
so usually, when I'm on the phone with my wife, she's usually like, yes. So I'm used to saying nay. All right, sorry, solar law, go ahead.
Solar law, okay, I have, along with Dan Switzer and several other people from the state, we've done a ton of work on this. This is probably our 6th or 7th draft.
I said in one, I'm gonna jump in, I'm gonna not have you give a dissertation, because for me, I looked through it, everything looks great, except for one thing. I think it's 4A2, if I'm not mistaken. It talks about a maximum distance for the solar panels from the peak of the roof. I just need somebody to, and I emailed Dan Spitzer this question, why?
Good question.
So maximum distance of 18 inches between the roof and the highest edge of the system. I'm
That's
thinking
for
it could have something to do with firefighting.
Firefighting,
That's
yeah.
probably where they would cut the holes at the peak.
But you already called in?
Mike, it says maximum.
Yes,
Yeah, so.
That means I can have it 2 inches from my peak.
it should be minimum.
It's probably a
Oh, minimum,
it's
yep.
probably a bad drafting error. I think that's all
So
it is.
if it is minimum, and that's the reason, I'm okay with that. But if that's just a number picked out of the air because, oh, maybe that'll look good, then I don't think that's right.
So
Fair.
you called him?
No, I texted him, I mean, I
Text
emailed him,
him.
because I had another question too, about
Okay.
something, a different subject, so I put it all in the same.
So, other than that, you were okay with it?
Jim, you can come in,
Not to interrupt.
you can sit down.
Everybody's really not prepared for the meeting.
Okay, when you're
Um,
working, you're working.
Oh yeah.
We
Just
cut this
finished.
down considerably because there were a lot of state laws, especially with Fire Prevention and Building Codes Act. Dan actually put that in where, rather than repeating the state laws.
Well, that might be it,
codes.
you're right, you think that's where it would happen, that's where they would cut them?
I'm
Up high in the
only
peak,
purely, oh yeah, they would definitely.
that's where they would cut it.
Yeah, but I'm just guessing that that may be why.
Okay.
How many
Yeah,
towns have
question.
adopted something like this?
That's
Um,
purely speculation.
There's probably 6 towns that are working on it. I think
Yeah,
there's
I
only
gotta read
one.
through this. I didn't look through it, but I'm just curious how many.
I think there's only, in our little local area, I think there's only one that has actually been adopted.
Well, the biggest deal is,
But they're all working on
Well,
it because it just,
came out,
It's
that
coming.
we're a little bit nervous about people being able to put ground mounted systems in residential areas that could very well affect the quality of life in those people's areas.
so
I
you're
had-
not gonna make me go through the whole spiel.
No, not for me.
No, I had no. I
Anybody else
had
does.
no. Look, he drafted this. This is the work of Spitzer, who's an expert on this thing.
Well,
So-
actually, it was a combination of 3-4 people that we went back and forth, putting things in, taking things out. And Dan is an expert in this particular kind of law,
And these people she was talking to are from the state of New York.
yeah.
So I think we know there's
So,
several
I've
companies.
vetted it everywhere.
There's several companies now who are eager to do this something on the island. Now, whether it's a good idea or not, we'll have to wait till the actual plans come forward. But I think if we have a legal background, a legal framework to help protect us.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The other thing that I included in my email is, when we put these things out, and somebody doesn't continue, the operation, like they don't continue to build out, or they go below their 80% of their capacity, and they need to disassemble the project and stuff like that, there's no penalties in there. We need to put penalties in there. There's no fines, there's no jail terms, not that there's supposed to be jail terms, but when you look in our laws, if you don't do something for a period of time, you can be fined up to $200 a day, blah, 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 blah. If you don't put any penalties in,
We should definitely do that.
the guy's gonna go, yeah, I'm just not gonna do it.
So Bev,
Right.
Bev, consider that.
I threw that to Dan
Because you
too.
don't wanna be stuck.
Okay, good.
Bev, consider that, and can you give
Disposal.
us a revised draft on Monday? Is that possible?
That's probably the biggest risk right there,
What's that?
is being stuck with the disposal.
Yeah.
But
Right.
that's in there too.
It's in
Yeah,
there,
but
but
no,
no
it's in there.
specific
But
penalties
no
are in
fines.
there.
Yeah, there's no penalties, so we
We'll
need
look
to
at the
have,
penalties, I'll talk to
You need to
It's
have stuff in
usually
there.
that, from what I was told before, like, when we were talking about the tourist laws, the penalty is done separately from the law.
Right.
Okay, so
I
that,
read a lot of our laws that have the penalties right in.
Yeah,
but
let's,
usually they are done separately, but,
for some reason, you're right, for some reason,
I'd rather have it.
Peter doesn't like doing that. I've noticed in the past, it's something else, that
It makes more sense to be in it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Well,
It
where
does
would the
make more
penalties
sense.
be? Because penalties for different things
Yeah.
are at different levels.
And the thing is, you
I
might
mean, if you
wanna
don't take
raise
care of
them
your
as you
junk
go
car,
along. See, the reason they usually not put it now, I remember
versus,
what he said.
something that's really bad.
That's right.
You wanna bring them up. See, that was the other reason, because now I remember what Peter said. The reason they do the penalty, schedule separate is so that as the years go along, you may wanna raise those
Like,
penalties,
like our fee schedule.
like your fee schedule.
Oh, then you have to draft,
And you don't
that's
have,
right, that's
you
what
have to
happens.
redo the whole
I don't know
law.
if I've ever seen a
penalty
I
schedule.
guess you could
Just
amend
put it in there, I think you put it in
But
there.
I'll ask.
But it's
him.
okay, if it's,
Yeah.
if it's in a different schedule, that's okay.
But-
You
but it's gotta
violate
be-
law such and such and such and such, the penalties are such.
It makes it a whole
That's
lot
okay.
easier for your average citizen to understand the law when the penalties are included in the law.
I would agree.
Same
Yeah.
to Mark.
Hey, so can we,
Percentage of what?
so she's gonna work on that.
Yeah.
Hey, can I, since this gentleman's here, just because did you come here by the request of somebody here, or you just came? Can I, cause I think he has an update, he sent me an
Wait a
email
minute.
today.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
Let me
sorry,
just
sorry.
finish
Yeah.
up. Okay. So what I would like to do is put on the agenda for the next town board meeting so that we can set up a hearing based on, we don't need a motion, do we need a motion for that? Based on making these streets.
Just get it on, you wanna start a public hearing,
Yeah.
right? So you could just put that on, and the draft doesn't have to be completely done. It needs to be done 5 days before? Well, wherever it
I'll get
Long
it done before
before.
that.
is. Long before?
To have the final draft available?
Yes.
I'll get it done this week.
7
You know
days,
what towns
maybe
are
10.
using this?
I didn't bring that.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't bring it.
Okay.
Doing,
Yeah, who's implementing
we-
this?
you know, I don't have the list with me.
Yes.
There's only one that I know that's actually passed a law. The others are doing exactly what we're doing right now, because I got copies of a lot of their drafts and what they were doing. I got 6 or 7 of them. I'd be happy to share them with you, Chris.
I'd just be curious on the one who already is doing it.
So can
You
I,
can have them contact the state, people that have all that information.
Yeah, I have that email, I'll send it to you. They have all that
I just wanna
information.
call them and ask them what,
I'll send you that
when?
information.
you know, what some issues were and.
That would be Jesse.
Yeah, it's more interesting.
so can I make a motion to go into executive session for a second? Go ahead.
That I just let Karen Cooney, you just need to get her a memo by Thursday at 11.
It wasn't on the workshop, but because it's not gonna be public anyway.